Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be a different kind of episode for us at Hey the Parents. On this episode, we will be talking about some of our experiences with family planning. Some of these topics that we are discussing today can be triggering for some of our audience members. Some of these topics can be triggering for us as well. We are going to try our best to speak from our experiences in an effort to normalize the conversation around difficulty in getting pregnant, high-risk pregnancies, adoption, miscarriage, and other hardships. While there are a number of positive areas of today's show, we really want to be upfront with you guys at the top of the show because, like us, each of us has our own experiences and works through difficulty and hard times in our own way. In this episode, more than ever, it's the three of us and all of you. This week in Hey the Parents, we are talking all about how many kids you plan for your family. We discuss the pressures that go along with being a couple, family planning, your original ideas of having kids in the backseat of the little car, of the board game life, and so much more. How did you know when you were done? We discuss complications, moments of hardship, moments of happiness, and how to support one another because these important conversations are easier when you have some friends to share it with. And of course, we talk about when we were younger, mishaps with our own kids, and what the supposed experts say. Because it's the three of us and all of you. I'm Michael Height.
I'm Sarah D.
And I'm Mike Levine.
Kids don't come with a handbook, so we need your help.
Where do babies come from?
Where do you think they come from?
Is this a kissing book?
Mama!
What?
Hi.
I learned it by watching you. There are no rules in this house. I'm not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
We sent them to the best boarding schools. We hired the best nannies. We did everything right.
Hey, Mom! The meatloaf!
No drinking, no drugs, no kissing, no tattoos, no piercings, no ritual animal slaughters of any kind.
Together, we can rule the galaxy as father and son.
This is Hey Other Parents, an honest, messy, imperfect show for raising kids.
Hey, it's us again.
What's
Welcome
going
back, everyone.
on?
Hello.
Oh, so we got the gang back together here. We got the gang. We got Mike Levine. He is back. There's no rain. There's no wind. There's no eclipses or earthquakes or hurricanes or
Kind of crazy.
It's just a normal Wednesday, which is
Just a
kind of
normal
nice.
Wednesday.
By the time you listen to this episode, everyone, it will have already passed Mike Levine's birthday. But Mike Levine's birthday is tomorrow. He's turning 22.
20, lovely. No, not 22. I wish.
22, young.
Wish to be back in the 20s.
It's beautiful. No, wait, let me ask you a question. So you're, who's older? Is it you or Taylor? You're the older one?
I am the older one. Yes, I am the older one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my wife was born in July, and I'm born in October. We're like roughly the same age, but I always say she's the older one. She robbed the cradle. But
Well, it's funny because my wife's taller than me, and I always say she's a woman I look up to. So, you know.
Aww. You know what? It's beautiful.
That's amazing.
See, what people probably don't realize is that dad jokes and things like that, those don't just happen overnight. You have to really work on those, and that grow over the terms of a relationship.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, it's
you
like
really earned it, I think.
I think the other day she actually told me, I know your birthday's coming up, but are you shrinking? Because you look a little bit small.
Oh, man.
I'm like, well, you know, Taylor, as you get older, you kind of do shrink a little bit. I don't know. I guess I'm just shrinking
Oh, no,
early.
it's starting.
I know.
I think we're going to name this episode like Words of Discouragement.
Exactly.
Oh, my goodness. Well, speaking of you being young and the birth order and you looking up to your wife, this episode today is all about family planning, planning to get more than the two. And that happens in a multitude of different ways. And we each have our stories, and I'm kind of just smiling because I'm thinking about just like, man, look at you guys. Like, man, we've known each other for a while. It's kind of kooky. Like, Sarah and Mike, I know you guys, you became a little more familiar with each other, like, with Food and Fury, but like, gosh, man, it is, man, just to have that look back. I'm like, man, looking back to like, we were going through these stories. And what's funny is, we'll get to it in like a little bit, but I was going through, I'm sure you guys probably did something similar as I did. I was flipping through like Google Photo and iPhoto or Photos over. And I was looking at like some of the pictures because I was looking for something specifically for a story. We'll talk about it later, but it is really wild. Like, I know there's like Facebook memories and like those things, like, they happen like, every year you're like, remember when you were blah, 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 blah in October or whatever, but this is like very funny to flip back and like actively look for something. And then you look for, this is like an organization thing. I'm disorganized with my photos too. So you're looking for like a specific photo, and then you stumble across funny stuff. So I stumbled across this one photo of when my wife was pregnant with Noah. my sister-in-law Sharon, she was pregnant with Nate. And there's a picture of the two of them, like with their bellies, like touching almost. And what's so funny is like there's a series of them. So I'm flipping through, and it must have been, I don't know when it was. I guess it was like around Ethan's birthday. Mm-hmm. So I flipped through the pictures, just finding one. I was looking for a picture. In the middle of the pictures, Amalia, our neighbor Amalia, Jacob's friend, she's standing in the middle of the two of them, like getting food. It's the funniest thing. You see the two of them with their reaction. So it's like this progression. So I have to send it to her parents because it's just very funny to see that picture. But anyway, so this episode is going to be all about family planning. There's good, there's bad, there's stress, there's coping. And I honestly don't know how it's going to go. I mean, some of these things we're going to be talking about today mix up a lot of emotion in me, and even talking about it and things that we were going through. We honestly don't know, but we feel like this is an important conversation to have because as we do this podcast, I know there's sometimes where we do weeks where it's kind of like fun and lighthearted and about organization or Sarah and I are still laughing because we're like, Mike can't make it. What are we going to do? We're going to do a topic. What are we going to do? Let's do organization. So then there's topics of organization. I know. And there's episodes where like Sarah's not there. Then Mike and I, we'll do a Star Wars episode. And then she's back and she's like, we got to get you guys back on track. But every now and then we have, we realize that like we do owe it to you. We owe it to ourselves to have conversations that go a little bit deeper. And this is one of those episodes. So we're buckling in. We got our time machine ready. We got our, I got my drink here. That's Diet Coke, something exciting. We're going to do this thing. So let's jump in. And I will say that in this episode, this is probably mostly going to be about like, current-ish kind of stuff as us, as adults. I'm still trying to become an adult, but as adults versus us being kids, because there's not too many things that obviously are going to come up in conversation. But in general, if this is the first time joining us, this podcast, Hey the Parents, it's a chance for a few of us parents who decided that we needed to join our efforts together to try and get through this as we call it a survival course, because that's what it is for us. We decided to do this podcast where we pick a different theme or topic each week. We discuss it from the standpoint when we were younger, what we grew up with our own parents, and then we shift on over to now as adults and what we do without a handbook with our own kids. We share some of our experiences and we learn from each other. And we hear a little bit from the experts. And then each week we feel a little bit better because we have each other and we have all of you. So if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, we'll tell you a little bit later in the show how you can get in touch with us here. But without further ado, we're going to jump right in to this part of the podcast. And that entails a quick pop back in time. So we are, I just thought like maybe it'd be kind of fun to talk about, Mike's like having like a panic attack already. I feel like one of the things that was, is kind of like fun and healthy to talk about. I think it's like kind of like maybe when we were younger, maybe the expectations or what revolved around our experiences with like, maybe like what we anticipated as kids with families, what our experiences were, what like, maybe what, do we expect like, got to have like 2.5 kids and like, white picket fence, what, what that whole thing was like. And I gotta tell you, it's funny because growing up, I feel like, most of the TV and things that I watched definitely portrayed families as like guys didn't do jack. The moms took care of everything. And like, it was like this portrayal of like, families of like, the families were like, the different dynamic and like the men, like 3 men and a baby or like Mr. Mom. And it was like, I don't know what to do with this baby in the diaper. So there was just like definitely this different belief of like, growing up and like having a family and stuff. But, do you guys remember like that feeling or that whole like, the social aspect of it or the TV aspect or like what you grew up with surrounding like what you believed like a family would be someday down the road?
I would always watch shows on TV, and I would always wonder what it would be like to kind of be like an older brother, or because I was the youngest at the time that I came around. And
so you're like, this is great. It's going to be this way forever.
Yeah, exactly. And then all of a sudden, my world was shaken when my mom came to me. It was like, oh, by the way, you're gonna be an older brother. I'm like, no way, So it's definitely,
you're like, no thanks.
Yeah. Definitely interesting. And when I was younger, I would always spend time with my mom. Like, I never really saw my dad when I was younger because he was always out and working. My mom and I remember when she would do like cooking and stuff, like it would just be me and her, like hanging out, eating at the table. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. I love when you're pregnant, Mom. It was an interesting experience because the idea was, hey, mom was home taking care of the house and the family while dad was out. I think that was kind of just the idea of the generation back then of growing up, and it's different now, you know?
Yeah, like my mom, she was, she taught for a number of years, and when she had my sister, from the time she had my sister until the time she had me, and then, I'm the younger one, so I had different experiences, obviously. Then she had me. She didn't go back to work until like, I guess I was ready for preschool or kindergarten, and it was time for her to like, start subbing again, becoming a teacher again. But like, that was kind of like just how it was. Like my mom was home, which also meant that she had to work, a little bit later into her career before she could retire because of that. But, my dad would not to like, it's just the way it was. He would travel because of work and stuff. And there were a lot of times where, she was holding down the fort. And then, and then dad would come back. You'd be like, oh, hey, what's going on? How about you, Sarah?
My experience was way different. I was adopted. So my brother and I are only 3 months apart. So, in terms of like what the family would look like for me, it was, I don't know, I didn't know any better. It was just like me and my brother were kind of just there and we were just hanging out. Like,
That's where we are.
I know. And I never thought about having like extra brothers or sisters. Like I was always happy that it was just me and him.
And you guys are so close in age. It's nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like from my experience, I came from like, a divorced home, so when my mom had just the three of us, it was, luckily she had the support of her parents. Her parents were always there supporting her and helping her through it. And my dad wasn't really in the picture until, after he had separated from my mom. So it was good to kind of see that love of family from my mom's side of the family, like kind of being there and supporting her. It kind of helped build a sense of
that's very nice.
Kind of helped build a sense of family within myself, And then eventually my mom met my stepdad, which was, a great man. So, it's definitely, it's definitely tough too for a single mother raising three boys, and not really having the support of, a significant other to kind of go through those challenges, and then finally she was able to find somebody to, help her through the life's journey.
Yeah, but now, and now you guys are really close,
Oh,
so
yeah.
I remember also like I have cousins, and I remember when my aunt and uncle, when they were trying to have kids, they had I remember the first time holding my my little cousin, and it was like I don't know about you guys, but remember the first time holding like a baby as a young kid, and it was like, oh, this is stressful. Like, how do you hold it? Like the soft spot. Like, the soft spot? What do you mean it's a soft spot? And that was like kind of wild. And I remember like the pressure of that all. And like I remember there was something, and we are obviously gonna get in different topics this week, but I remember being young and my aunt actually, when they were trying to have my their second, they did have a miscarriage, and they told us, and I remember, I still weigh on this, is because it was really wild that we were pretty young. My sister and I, well, my sister's 4 years older than I, but I think I would have been 7 or 8, and they shared this, and I almost feel bad because at the time, being so young, I was just like, I don't know what's going on. Like I feel like I almost didn't give the reaction that was probably like appropriate or like what was needed at the time, but maybe it was just good to kind of get it out for them. But they ended up having, they had another one, and we're going to talk about this stuff in the episode. But you know what? Without further ado, I think maybe it's a good time to kind of let's get into this episode. Let's get into our voyage, our experiences as parents, and kind of what we went through. Like I said before in the intro, there's a lot of positive. There is. It's a journey with having kids is scary. There's a lot of great parts of it. There's a lot of scary parts of it. And we wouldn't be doing this podcast if we didn't find a lot of joy in it. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So enough with the disclaimers, because we're going to do this, I guess.
Jump in.
Let's jump in. So, all right. So this is a part of the show where we discuss what it's like as parents of their own kids. Sometimes we get it right. Sometimes we get it wrong. Sometimes we do a lot of guessing. But this is where we learn from each other. So as parents now, I feel like, or the process of becoming parents, I feel like our first child, which is maybe a little bit different in everyone's story, I think we were probably, for sakes of a better word, either overly positive or maybe just kind of like, so only the sunshine, in it all. I remember like going to the doctor. We were pregnant. We were really excited. I remember my wife we were still in an apartment. My wife was like in the bathroom. She's sitting on the floor. She called me in. She showed me like this plastic thing. At first I thought she had a fever and I was like, what are you holding? And I was like, oh my God. And then immediately without, we did a lot of hugging and stuff. And then immediately I was sent back to CVS to buy, I may have, the CVS stock may have gone up that night because I think I bought a number of pregnancy
like 20
tests.
more. Yep.
Yeah. And it was so funny at the time because like as prior to that, as a spouse or the guy in the relationship, if you're married to a woman, one of the things that you just like, it's kind of like a faux pas, whatever it is. Like you later on, you're like, I don't care, I'll get you pads whatever you need. But when you're early on, you're like, I'm going to get a pregnancy test. Which one am I getting? It's like almost like the guy that's in like you're going grocery shopping for the first time and you're like, wait, hold on a second, I'm in the milk section. Which one do you want? So like, I'm in the I'm in CVS and there's like digital, instant, rapid, double pack, triple line, and it was like, what is going on right now? So it was like, just get the CVS, whatever it was. So anyway, so I got them. Bought like 8 versions of the same thing. I got them home. Triple pack, double pack, buy one get one, whatever. Got them home. Yes. Lots of more testing. I don't know how she drank that much water. And it was obviously things were good. And I remember after like we called the doctor. We're like right away. We're like, oh my God, what did you eat this weekend? What's going on? Very very focused on the food and like the soft cheeses and like the weekend before we went up to Cortland with our friends Nicole and Peter and like. There was like, we had a lot to eat, a lot to drink, and we were kind of freaking out a little bit. And, after that, of course, like, we're getting like almost ready to have like, a freak out moment. And then we finally get to the doctor. And I remember the funniest thing was like everything that is portrayed to you in the movies is like, so sorry, spoiler alert, listener. If this is the first time you're having a child, the movies are way wrong. But you go to the doctors and you expect like some degree of like high level science. They bust out what is the equivalent of like the Cosmo quiz. They take a paper circle out of the drawer and you're like, okay, when was your period? Okay, sounds good. Roll, put the wheel. I'm like, okay, so this is your due date. I'm like, what? Yes. I'm like, this is science? Yep. I'm like, you couldn't just lie to me and take out a calculator? This is so right? This is so then it was like, oh my God, what could we eat? Could we go to this place? Could we go to that place? There was like a pizza place in town that makes like Grimaldi's. They make like pizza that was like, like the brick oven stuff, but we use fresh mozzarella. The guy's like, don't worry, the owner of Grimaldi's called us, is all good. All these ridiculous things. Like, our biggest fear was like, what is going to happen with like the salmon or eating tuna or like, all of the things that are important, that are on your mind. But that is, at the time, that is what we were freaked out about. And I think that is kind of cute looking back on it now because life is a lot more complicated. But at the time, it was very exciting, and that's that was our first moments of holy schmolies, we're doing this, how about you guys? Holy schmolies!
Like my first, like I want to focus on the decision to have a baby, and I think that was my biggest fear back then because you didn't know if you wanted to do it or not.
Okay, so were just discussions before having your first child?
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It's like are we ready financially, or where are we living, and I think the answer to that, and it's cliche because I think you hear from everybody, is like, you're never really ready. I think you're ready just with the person you are with. I think that's what it comes down to. When you talk to that person and you come to the decision of having a child or creating life, when you look at that person and you have the confidence in that person, I think that's when you're ready. So, for those of you who are deciding to have a child, you're never going to be ready financially where you live, or there's always going to be issues. You just got to have confidence in your partner, I think. Ironically enough, as we begin the trials, there was one day where I was in the car with my friend Mike, and I'm like, guys, I don't know. I think we may be pregnant. I don't know. and Mike's like, nah, you're all right. You'll be all right. Oh No. We had another friend, Mike, that said that, and
to make it more complicated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, the other Mike. Okay.
Yeah. We had another friend, Mike, that said, "No, you're good." And then the next day, Taylor took that test, and I was sitting on the floor in our apartment playing video games, and she's like, I'm pregnant. And I'm like, no way. And I did the same thing Mike did.
You're like, can I finish this level first really quickly?
Wait. Let me just finish this level. And I ran to CVS, took 100 tests. Oh, God. It was crazy.
Yeah, for the record, listener, I was fully supportive of my friend, but I did tell him, like, well, I wouldn't go as far as saying I'm like, there's a good chance you might think you might be pregnant. Instead of just telling you what you wanted to hear. Yes. As a good friend, I tried to be as honest with you as possible.
Yes.
But
okay.
And everything worked out just fine. But it's funny, you just kind of reminded me of something. So this is it sounds random, but it's kind of related. When I worked one of my first jobs out of college, I worked in Atlanta. I worked for a print company, and there's this guy Alvin I worked with. He's awesome. He's an older guy, had a family. And I remember at one point, I think I must have been just like, sort of like trying to get my life in order. Probably like, well, I first got to go to the job, whatever. Then this happens and that happens. He's like, listen, you know the problem with you guys? I'm like, talk to me, my friend, talk to me. And he was awesome. He's like, people feel like they have to be always in this perfect place before you get to the next spot.
Yeah.
And he said that my wife and I, we got married, we didn't have a lot of money, and we didn't have to have things perfect for us to be together. And he said that the things that we got through and the challenges that we had, sometimes it was better because it was the both of us working through it instead of waiting for things to be perfect for having the other person join along. Yeah. And like in the back of my mind, I think I kind of like always kind of hear that voice.
That guy's because a Yoda. You know what? As a Yoda.
Yeah, Alvin is Yoda, legit, But there's something to be said about trying to present yourself in a certain way versus like just being what you got, and being with your partner. And sometimes things don't need to be all lined up a certain way, like a perfect pool shot to be what it is. And if you could find a way to lean on each other, that is something that is only going to get more important as time goes on.
Well said, buddy. What about you, Sarah? What do you think?
So first off, the conversation of getting pregnant and things like that. So let's go into another time machine. There we are, 16-year-old Jean and Sarah. We met each other. I asked him out. We got married eventually, not at 16. Because
I like how assertive you were. I like that.
I was like, wait, you got married at 16?
Yeah, not 16, 24, I think it was 24. So G and I, there we are, we were young, and we were newly married, and I got pregnant, and I had a miscarriage. It was crushing. It was like, it was an oopsies. It wasn't planned. And G and I were like devastated because, like once you get pregnant, you have that feeling of like, oh my God, this baby's gonna change your life. We're gonna they're gonna be a doctor, a lawyer, and then to have the miscarriage so early on. It was 8 weeks. My OBGYN, who I'm still with now, at that time, he's like, you guys are young. You're going to have your whole life ahead of us. Yeah. Gene was devastated that he told us that. And he felt like that was so insensitive. Yeah. My mom, her and I never really talked about why she and my dad never had their own biological children, mm-hmm. but she was super sympathetic about me having a miscarriage, and I definitely leaned in on her. But both Jean's mom and my dad were both like, you're young, keep trying, you'll be good to go. Yeah. And it was like, oh my God, it was devastating to us. We were so I remember just really needing him, and I just wanted to be alone and wanted to be a cocoon, and we're newly married. We've grown up with each other. We're, like I said, we got together when we were 16. I asked him out. I want to emphasize that one more time. And
he's a lucky man.
Yes. Yeah. And it was we have been through so much, Gene and I, in so many different facets. And that is my ride or die guy. Mm-hmm. That is my rock right there. And so it was devastating. But then we had another oopsies, and that came out to be Sophia, and that was when I was pregnant, I was so nervous. Like when I found out I was pregnant, I was like, oh my God. So we ran out, we got a couple more tests or whatever. But it wasn't like this necessarily, I hate to say it, like, there wasn't this feeling of joy right away because I was scared. You know, I was scared. I was scared something was going to happen again, being adopted. I didn't know like if I was going to be able to have children, you know, like I didn't know my history. So there was so many mixed feelings, to be honest with you. When I found out I was pregnant with Sophia, I was scared, I was worried, I was happy, you know, and now years back reflecting on it, G and I, we've talked about it. Like he was like, I was picking up on all those feelings you were having. I didn't know to be happy or not. And then I was looking at him like, why is he happy? But meanwhile, I was probably projecting all this
like in a big circle of.
Yeah, it was like a bad like circle of like, I'm feeling kind of confused. We were so young in our marriage. Like we didn't really know what to do. Like it was just like, it was like a bunch of feelings, you know, like, so, but then as the pregnancy progressed, we, you know, obviously you kind of lean into it, you know?
Yeah, of course. Okay, this is happening, guys.
You're like, it's happening. But like that first moment of joy, like I had that with the first pregnancy. And then the second one, I definitely walked in a little more like tender footed. I was a little nervous. I was scared, to be honest with you.
That makes me so like, that brings back all those emotions. Like, I feel like almost like it's like hard to say because I feel like a little bit like, you know, just going with this again. But I feel like almost like sad in a way for you because like that feeling of like you lost your innocence. You know what I mean? Like you don't have that.
Yes.
You're walking in and like if you see other people and like I remember the difference between the first time and like, you know, I'll talk about our situation in a second, but the first time it's like, you know, obviously joking around before about like, oh man, can we eat pastrami or we don't not, you know, like that was the biggest worries that we had. And, you know, I'm going to go into this for a second and this might not be easy for some people. So we were talking about the triggering part of the episode. This is probably it. So if you feel like this is a lot for you to take in, you might want to jump ahead like 10 minutes at this point. But so when my wife and I were deciding to have a second one, we were the kind of people that were like, okay, we have the papers, we have the calendars. Shocking. The guy has a clipboard. So we were like, how are we going to have a child and plan this child out so this child is going to be born between this month and this month? It would be more ideal in this month. This would be better for us, you know, for us to be better. And obviously that's bonkers because, you know, after seeing the wheelie chart, I should probably know better. But we did, you know, we started thinking about it when Jacob was like 18 months or so. We were like, we're gonna have our second kid. And I remember I remember talking to Sarah and I had the same boss at the time. I remember talking to her and she said to us, this was like when things were further along, when things were getting in, whatever. But she said like, oh, try to do stuff together now because you're going to be splitting and dividing after that. And I'm like, oh, really? How bad could that be? I think I see my wife sometimes, you know, because it's like crazy. But anyway, you know, I had good thoughts, but so guys, like this is kind of basically like some of the stuff. So when you go and you get to the point where you go to the doctor, because they usually won't see you for a certain number of weeks, it's kind of just how it goes. You call up, you call the OBGYN and you say like, hey, this was going on. We think we're pregnant. We got the test this date. This is how many weeks. They say, okay, we'll wait until you're like 6 weeks or 8 weeks, whatever it is, to see you. So typically when you go in, the first thing they do is they, you know, whatever, blood work, paperwork, whatever. Then they do the ultrasound and they're looking for just something to show up. And when that happens, there is a screen and it looks like something out of a movie, out of like, you know, a sci-fi movie. And they get the stuff, they squirt on your wife's, or your spouse or your partner's belly. Comes out like ketchup, it's clear, and then they start moving around, and then you will see something hopefully, and then the next thing is the heartbeat, and the heartbeat is like the big moment, right? That's the big thing you're looking for. So something that is the biggest blow to your guts is if you go back and unfortunately things don't take. It's the second time the doctor will go searching, and that moment when you're looking and you're waiting for them to find something and they don't. And it's just a screen with black. And it is by far the biggest punch in your life to your stomach. And it is hard. And we went through that. And I can't express to you what that's like. It's just one of those things that if it happens to you, you just have to be there for each other. And we decided that instead of letting things naturally take their course, we would surgically have things kind of worked out because it was just a lot to deal with. And we did that. And we, you know, it took us a while to kind of regroup. But there was a moment where, there was a happy side to the end of all this. But when your spouse, if your wife, whatever, your girlfriend, when they have the baby, it's a really weird feeling because you cannot share that with them in the way that you take that pain away or you like experience that with them. You're just kind of the moron running around getting ice chips. So like the thing is when you're there, you see your spouse in a much more higher regard because you're like, holy freaking moly, how are they doing this right now? This is incredible. I will get you more ice chips if you need them. But when going through this experience is definitely something without a doubt of like, you can't take that away from them. You can't take that pain away. You just have to be there. And then to watch your spouse go off into the surgery doors, it's hard, but we did get through it and we decided to try again. And we did. And unfortunately we had two bad blows. We had a second experience. And the first time was the growth wasn't there. Like they have measurements and they like to do this measurements with the computer and they see kind of how things are going. And they have like a certain degree where they're expecting a size kind of thing. And if that doesn't take, then they kind of know something's up. And we have a very supportive OBGYN that we went to. And my wife jokes around that like, oh, she wants to go meet him for coffee because he's so wonderful. And I want to meet him for coffee too, because you really bond with him, when you go through these experiences. And they do tell you, and I think maybe like, medically, whatever else, maybe this is just the conversation we had at the time. But he did say, and I do remember, these aren't the exact words, but basically there are some times where things don't genetically work correctly, and it sometimes is Mother Nature's way of taking care of a problem that would be a big problem. And although it is an insanely difficult hardship, which thank God for my friends here, thank God for the people that are around me, because wow. But it does work out to be positive in the way that things are not formed in a way that they shouldn't be. That is not always the case, but that is something that is the belief with a lot of these miscarriages early on. And what I'm referring to is the like below 12-week mark, because typically speaking, you don't tell people, and people will typically say you don't tell people until somewhere around like 12 weeks, whatever that is. But we had the second time. The second time there's a chemical test where they're looking for hormones in women, and if they suspect that something's wrong, they'll take blood and they'll be looking for this number to show up. And the second case, when the growth wasn't totally there, but then the numbers were dropping, and it didn't take. We had a similar experience, but once again, the heartbeat and all that stuff. So we did go through it twice, and we had to have a big moment with ourselves, and we wanted to have a bigger family, and it was a rough blow, and we went through it. And when the third time happened, my wife did a lot of reading, and she's an artist, and she was doing a lot of painting. She was just trying to come to grips with it. And we were reading, and there was something called a rainbow baby. And that is, sorry, I need a second. That's something that is basically like when you think about, the other side of a rainbow, when you look for things to, the pot of gold, whatever, right? So when we were pregnant that third time, we had a lot of mixed feelings. We were kind of like, this wasn't really our second pregnancy, it was kind of our fourth. So it was, in a sense, it was like my wife had this immense guilt where she was thinking about all the pregnancy that didn't take. It was like this idea of like what happened to that. Those, it's a weird feeling of letting that go and like thinking about it in terms of like, those were thoughts, those are feelings that we had to come to grips with, those were not stories, the stories ended differently. And when Ethan came along, man, baby, that is our little rainbow baby. And we love Jacob, we love Ethan, we love Noah, but that trip between Jacob and Ethan was like, it was a doozy, man. And we don't really talk about it a lot, but I will say that like when you say those words, miscarriage or anything like that, people will come out of the woodwork to support you, and they'll share their stories with you. So I guess, and I'm sure we have a lot to speak with, with you guys as well, but I will say that you are not alone. There are other people that have gone through things like this in various ways, much harder, maybe easier, but they're there for you. Correct. And it's important that you trust enough in your family and your friends to share with them. Because when we did have the third pregnancy after Jacob with having Ethan, we decided that we weren't going to wait for 12 weeks. We weren't going to wait for that. We were going to tell our parents, because we didn't, it was rough for us. We didn't want to keep going through this again, having to wait. And somewhere between that, like in our minds, we had it made up that somewhere between like 6 and 12 weeks, that disaster was going to strike. And I don't think that feeling really went away the entire time. I think we were still believing that something was going to go wrong, like pretty much the entire time. So we didn't have that innocent excitement that we had for the first one. But at the end of the day, I was really, the feelings are rushing back. But when that little dude popped out and, and we got his first little bath and he grabbed the stethoscope and wouldn't let go. I'm like, dude, this kid's strong. There was something to be said about, it was obviously worth it at the end of it all. But, there's something to be said. Like I could keep saying all different things, but I will say, have faith in the people that surround you, the people you care about. They will surprise you in the moments when things are hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like, so there was a few things I wanted to respond to. Was like, one is, I remember that time when you had shared, I think it was like prior to you trying for Ethan, and you had confided that like this is not an easy go for you guys. And I remember thinking that like that's hard. I think I confided with you that before Sophia there was a miscarriage.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely devastating to be so excited to go to the GYN to get the sonogram, and there's nothing there. It is heart-wrenching, that feeling. And like, I have to say, selfishly, as a woman and being so young, and maybe because I was adopted, my mom really didn't know how to navigate some of this stuff because she never shared with me about any situation she had. So I felt very alone at that time. And it was... so I never thought about like how the man felt on the other end. Like I knew Gene was sad and stuff like that, but like I was like, you don't know how I'm feeling. Like I'm feeling like I carried this thing for like a little bit. Now I lost it. What's wrong with me? What did I do wrong? Was it the thing I ate yesterday that that caused this or whatever? And then unfortunately, like after all those things, like you go through a procedure perhaps, or you let things kind of naturally be where it is. You still got to do like blood work and stuff like that. So it's still like that ache that it's like physically that's still there. And when your spouse, as like the supportive spouse, you're there, like the best thing for you it's just to like remember you're both feeling this, you're both going through this together, to be there, to get the ice chips, to give the hugs, to be supportive and things like that. Because if you don't have like Mike Levine was saying, like if you don't have trust in your spouse or your other half to help you through things like this, like it could be lonely. And even though Gene did everything he could possibly do, I think he still kind of feel lonely, and it's no fault to the other person. It's just this feeling of loss. It kind of stinks.
It hits you too. Do you feel like it hits you at different times too? Like do you feel like sometimes you're not synced up properly? Like almost like it'll hit you, and then like maybe Gene might come across as like not sad, and then you're like, what's wrong? Like why aren't you? Like it's hard because you're not really like totally like in sync all the time when this is all happening.
Yes, because there's so many, everyone's having different feelings. And then when I read about rainbow babies or the phrase rainbow babies, I'm like, oh my God, Sophia's my rainbow baby. And like, Sophia means so much to me because like, that is my best friend. That is my girl. Like, like her and I have been eating bacon, egg, and cheeses since I was pregnant with her and Oreos. Like that is definitely my rainbow baby, Sophia. She's everything I always wanted to be and more. So like, if you're blessed to have a pregnancy that, goes to full term and you have your next child, I think, that out of all that pain, there can be some relief. And if that's not like that person's path, like there's so many other ways to kind of go about of having a child if you so choose to have one, But I really love that idea of the rainbow baby because really at the end of like rain and things like that, and the thunderstorms, there comes a something at the end, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and to speak to, Mike's story before, what I love about that, as I hear his whole story, and I know bits and pieces of it because we've been friends for a long time. What I love about it is how you can see that him and his wife and their love for each other, and that kind of just shines through their whole family. Like, you guys don't know the heights as well as me and Sarah know the heights, right? Right? But when you look at them, you see the beauty that comes from that rainbow within their family, and that beauty comes from the two of them and going through that journey and that struggle. And I just want to bring it back to like what Sarah said, what Mike said with the Yoda guy. I forgot his name.
Thanks, buddy.
Alvin.
Love him, man.
And the chipmunks.
And myself. It really goes back to when you do that conversation of deciding to create life and having a baby, there's so many challenges along that path. And just make sure that you're with the person to go through those challenges. And, Mike and Rachel, you guys did it, man. You did it. And it's beautiful.
Thanks, man. That's awesome. Both of you guys, I have the utmost respect for. Yeah. And Mike, I know, there's different versions of everyone's story, but I think about you guys, you and Taylor, you were kind of you kind of working out jobs and things, and you were, you were kind of you were living with her parents, right? You guys were kind of
so when
just trying to navigating that whole thing.
Yeah, and when we were having our first child, we didn't.
That takes strength.
Listen, Taylor and I have been on a lot of different challenges ourselves in many different ways, and one of the challenges that we had during birth was when Lucas was born. All right. The doctor kind of had this look on his face, and when they have that look on, something's wrong, but they're not saying it, and all those first worries that you have start rushing through your head, like, oh my God, what's going on? And then all of a sudden we had a cardiologist come in, and we were told that Lucas had a hole in his heart. So I
remember that
freaked us out. Okay. I believe it is a common thing. It can happen a lot, but I remember that.
Those should have been the first words out of the doctor's mouth.
If I remember correctly. So, as far as scares, that was our major scare with our first pregnancy. And because everybody always is like, oh my God, you're gonna have a boy, you have a girl, you have whatever,
yes.
And really what I feel you should be saying to yourself is just I hope our child comes out happy. And that's what our language, not happy, healthy, I'm sorry, happy and healthy, both, really.
Yeah. Both are good options. Probably healthy. Happiness will come later.
Yeah. That's what our language did change to eventually. But you get caught up in the whole having a baby situation. But then I remember that whole first year, because you have to wait a whole year to see if the heart actually closes. The hole actually closes. And I remember I was at work. I think I was at summer school or something, doing some type of work, and my wife just called me crying because I wasn't able to go to that appointment, and she, the doctor was able to finally tell her that it had closed, and the relief that came over both of us, that our child wasn't going to have the heart problems or any issues. It's just really scary. And all you could hope for is just a happy and healthy baby, So
yeah, I feel I remember, man, this whole this bringing up a lot of emotions this episode.
It sure is.
I just want to say something that man, I feel if anybody is equipped to deal with, not that you deserve it or have to go through it, but man, you and your wife, man, you guys can, I don't know if you deserve to handle it, but you can handle it. You guys definitely have this amazing strength that I don't know how. Man, I don't know how you do it sometimes, but it's incredible. Something I want to just bring up, and I don't know how this is going to kind of sound, but I just feel like people say stuff to you. Sometimes I feel like maybe they're trying to be encouraging, and I know it's easy to get upset or frustrated with people. And like, we're going to get into a later part of the episode about some of this stuff too. But sometimes when people are trying to be comforting, it maybe comes across. So I guess like if there's anything to be said about that, it's just like before you respond, just take a moment.
Yeah.
Take a moment. Because, sometimes people try to be there for you and they're trying to say good things or trying to like put you in a better spot. But sometimes the words aren't really possible to make someone feel better in a moment. And like just being able to talk and like letting the other person just get it out maybe is, beneficial. But people don't often mean to say the wrong thing, but it does inevitably happen sometimes. But try your best, try your best. You could always apologize later if you lose it, but that's how it goes.
Like I feel bad. I feel bad because, when you encounter somebody who are going through these situations, it's like you never know really what to say, or what to do. So I kind of just generally, hey man, if you need me, I'm here for you. I keep it like very simple, very short and sweet. I had a cousin also who went through a similar situation with you, like you said, Mike and Sarah. And I didn't know what to say or what to do, but I just said, hey, if you need anything, I'm here for you. I'm really sorry.
You know what? It's funny because it's not funny. Sorry. It's a weird situation because in one hand, when you're dealing with a friend or someone that you care about and they're going through a hardship, it does, as you get older and as you're dealing with stuff and just life, I feel like you want to say, what can I do? And like in the back of your mind, you're like, man, that was stupid. Like, what is a person going to tell you in that moment sometimes? And I agree with you because I do it too sometimes. So I'm going to be like, what have you done, Michael Levine?
Yeah.
But I feel like sometimes it feels forward. Depends if you know the person. Sometimes it feels like better just to like kind of like just do something. Maybe it's like bring them food, buy them something, give them a little silly gift. Like, even though like they didn't ask for it, sometimes people don't necessarily know what they want in a way. I mean, don't be like really pushing, show up like, I'm here to eat with you. I feel like there's something to be said about like just in some ways to be supportive, because sometimes there are no words. You could listen. Mm-hmm. You could just do something nice and let people be. Yep. Yeah. I know like the bread thing is like a good example in my brain is just like whatever, but like sometimes it's just showing up with some macaroni and cheese, Mike Levine. And sometimes, and it's, and that's right.
Let me tell you, that mac and cheese is well-meaning.
It is
let me tell you.
Does it,
Michael Hyatt at some other point has showed up with mac and cheese at my door too.
At my house too.
Yes.
I'm telling you.
I have no words, but I have this.
It's the rainbow family. I'm telling you, Sarah.
It is. Let me tell you though, like that mac and cheese, but anything symbolic like that is so important. Yeah. Like, listen, I get what my OBGYN was saying, and I get what my dad was saying, my mother-in-law was saying, like, yeah, you're young, it's gonna be okay, you got this. And they're trying to be hopeful and things like that. And trust me, I trust my OBGYN. I'm still with him for many years. I love that man. But he's being a realist. And like in hindsight, maybe that wasn't the words I needed at the moment, but like, in reality, things worked out. But, I think that as much as sometimes we have difficulties in pregnancies or like births are very scary, like you have to kind of like just embrace it and just be there for someone. And sometimes like just even if you just do something without someone asking, and I mean like not encroaching on their privacy, just like a mac and cheese, you pop by and sweep the floor, like that is so helpful and so meaningful, because sometimes when you're in the midst of everything and trying to figure out all these feelings and you don't know what's going on, your marriage feels like it's in disrepair, just you coming in and you just kind of doing a little something, a little act of service, a little act of love. It is so helpful. It's so meaningful, so I'm with that. Like, like bring in the mac and cheese.
I feel like it's funny because I didn't realize like, yeah, I know. But I feel like as someone who's like, I feel like I'm learning my way through life. I'm going to figure it out eventually. I feel like that's something that I think I learned it from other people, that idea that like sometimes you just have to just figure it out, and you might not be right, but like make it somehow easier or convenient for the other person. And like my brain, I go through food because I feel like it makes me happy when I cook for other people, and I feel like it brings people joy too. So like for me, that's probably my love language is a bacon, egg, and cheese. But there's something like I feel like even people that feel like lost and confused, like sometimes people just don't want to talk about stuff in the moment, and maybe just like giving them like an Uber Eats gift card or something is fine too. Yeah. People all have to eat. What was our old podcast? We all eat, so let's eat something good together. I feel like there's just something like make it easier for them in some way. Sometimes that is just whatever that version of that is.
Yeah. Okay, so like even if like for you gentlemen who were on the other end of the birthing process, you're not actually physically going through it. It's nice to have someone say, "Hey, you're at the hospital. Do you need some like energy bars or something like that?" Like, what was your experience though in the room with your partners?
Oh man,
while they're because
there's a number of things, but I'll tell you.
Acts of service because like sometimes we do forget about the men. It is, and listen, ladies, we do a lot of the work, but like like I said, like
there's no question.
Even though whether we're going through the downs of pregnancy and difficulties of it, we do bear the brunt of it in some ways. But at the same time, our spouses are going through the other end when they're not the ones carrying. So, gentlemen, like, what did you need, or like, what did you appreciate?
Well, I will say,
did you feel in the birthing room?
I will say that there is a part of you that, it's funny because the nurses are always like. Well, first off, let's just make this abundantly clear. The nurses are doing like, we're not saying the pregnant woman is doing like all of it here, okay? But the nurses at in the room, they are doing so much more than you will ever imagine. Yeah. They are like they all deserve halos. The women that often women, some of the men, the nurses that are in there that are part of the birthing process, are like they are doing like whatever you think in the version of the movies and stories. Yeah, the doctor shows up at the 11th hour. Is like, oh, I just finished up my round of golf. I'm here. But it's crazy. And what happened, I remember, like, because I am. Yo, Sarah, Mike, you know me. I do not like blood. I do not. Oh gosh. So in the midst of it all, like you as a woman, you have to keep pushing. You have to keep the process going. If you're getting C-section, obviously it's a little different. If you're not doing C-section, you there's a combination of like the meds, not the meds. When we had Jacob and Ethan, my wife was able to get medication because of the timing. No, we didn't get there in time. It was crazy. That's a whole. But the thing is like my wife was like losing her energy and strength because the first time it was 36 hours. So it was like they tried there's a couple medications, but the one that kind of like helped move things along is one thing, but there's another one that kind of helps you dilated. And the first one didn't take. They finally let her eat a little bit, then she did it again. And then when things kind of were finally moving along, she was kind of tired. So they wanted me to be there. They're like, well, if you're not going to pass out, then get over here. So they were like, I was like, I'm standing over here because I don't need to look at this. I'm good. I saw in high school, we saw I'm good. So in the middle of it all, they're like, you know what? You're doing great. It's happening. I was like, I can't do this. It's not happening. Like, whatever. She's like, you know what? Let's get your husband over here. Take a look. What do you see? I'm like, why? Why are you doing this to me? And it was like, well, I guess I have to come up to the plate to play the baseball because I don't have a choice. So
you gotta catch
twice.
The baby.
Why twice? Why two of the babies have I gone through this? So I was like, oh no, that's definitely ahead. So I that's not, look, my wife's gone through a lot more than I do. I could handle whatever I don't want to be handling. And that was intense. And then I remember it's a very funny process because like you're not really thought about as the guy. Yeah. You're more of kind of an annoyance and you're in the way. So like I do joke. We always joke about the ice chip thing because like that is what happens is like all the spouses or partners of the women that are giving birth are all meeting up at that stupid ice machine. And I feel like they keep the ice machine because they're like, we got to do something with these guys. We don't know what to do with them. And you're just like filling up because you're like, can I get more ice chips? I remember like we were watching like Mr. Belvedere, just like hours are going by. We got like ice chips. It's just like, there's no food for the guy. guy at all. So like you have to bring granola bars and stuff. And then, and trust me, it's going to be okay. And then after it was all said and done, I remember, I would go for walks because like I just had to like, just get like a little fresh air or whatever else. My wife was like, you just got to leave the room, like get out of here for a little bit. And I found a local pizza shop. I'm at Starbucks. I'm walking back. But it's such a weird thing. I remember like after our first guy, because my wife, her water broke at the house. After, if the baby was born, because she had a roommate, every room situation is different, but when they have a roommate, typically they don't want the spouse staying there. If you have a private room and you're fortunate enough to have that, then the spouse could stay. But oftentimes, if not, they kind of want you to like go on your merry way because of like some privacy and concerns and for if you're sharing a room, whatever. So I left and I went home and I was on like cleanup duty. It was like, doing laundry and everything else. And then I remember like I got like, I don't know what it was, like 2 hours of sleep. I woke up and like, I was like, oh my God, I was supposed to wake up like half an hour ago. I missed like, the whatever the class was. I got back in the car, driving back. I still have the bracelet on my wrist. And I was like, it's okay. My wife's in there. And they were like, they let me go through and park. That's ridiculous. And I remember like what a weird time it was. And, there's going to be other episodes like this, but I do want to take a quick moment to talk about this because I remember during the process, my wife wholeheartely wanted to nurse, she wanted to breastfeed, and it didn't take, and she tried, and there was a lot of pressure put on her by certain people, in the hospital, and whatever. I am not here to judge. You can do whatever the heck you want, but I will say whatever decision that you feel comfortable with is one that you should do, and people should back off.
Yeah.
And because it didn't work out for her. She really did try. She did end up, going bottle feeding. And she felt a lot of pressure from it, and a lot of shame, I think, from it not working. And it was kind of, it made me, who baby did I get defensive? And it was like, back off, man, And I remember like it was really like people, I will say like, if you feel, you have to be protective of your partner and listen to what their feelings are. But if you feel like it's not working and your partner does not want to do it, it is okay to protect and to send people away, because like many things, like almost like a sales pitch, I'll say, when you open the door, when you open up a crack for a conversation to happen, people will jump in and will take that opportunity, even if it's something you don't want. So I'm not telling you, once again, breastfeed, don't breastfeed, bottle, whatever, baby's going to be fine. Whatever you're comfortable with. I will say that it didn't work for us, not for sakes of not trying. But because it didn't work, I found myself in a very defensive situation where I had to almost guard my wife and to tell someone to back off, man, because it was like, you're pushing it, you're making her unhappy. And we came to the agreement that like, even if this, whatever it is, if you can't be comfortable and be calm and enjoy the time with your baby and feed them in whatever way it is, it's not good. And whatever version of that story is, if you could relax, and if that comes from a bottle or that comes from something else, if you could be calm and actually enjoy that bonding time with the baby, good. That's what matters. That's more than what any of the stuff matters. So I will say, if you find yourself in that circumstance, take a deep breath, breastfed, bottle fed, they're going to be okay.
So I'm going to say 3 or 4 things to speak to Sarah's question. So
well, the count. Yeah.
The first thing is, and I'm sure a lot of listeners will get mad at me for this, but I had a sandwich while my first baby was being born.
Wait, like a full out hoagie? Like what's going on here?
So real quick, I was just,
Taylor, I got to finish this thing. I got to.
Taylor. It was like that. So Taylor,
That's why you don't want the foot long,
So Taylor started going into labor, having contractions, whatever. It was like 4 a.m, and then we get to the hospital, and the whole time I'm like helping her, I'm coaching her, we're walking around the hospital, whatever. And then
you find Subway.
Yeah. Well, so then this is what happens. So then, I'm in the room with the nurse, and like Mike said, the nurse is like the number one person in there for you. She's like, "Oh, Mr. Levine, did you eat?" And I said, "Wait, no, I didn't. Am I supposed to eat? Like, is this a thing?" She's like, "Well, you need your strength. You have to eat. What are you talking about? Do you get a snack, get something?" So I started freaking out. Like, oh my God, like Taylor needs me. I need to eat something.
I need sustenance.
So I'm calling.
I can't be at my best if I don't eat a sandwich right now.
Oh Lord. Okay.
So I'm calling my mother-in-law because she's close by. I'm like, get me a sandwich right now. You know, so
give me a Parm Hero.
Did they have the baby yet? No, Mikey's on the phone. He wants a footlong.
So she comes into the emergency room. She's got the sandwich. I'm like yelling at her, "Where were you?" Taylor's dialing and she's about to start pushing.
Oh,
I'm like,
Lord Jesus.
hold on. I need to take a bite. So actually, in between reps, I kind of went back and forth and took a bite.
Reps.
How are you? Okay, listen. I don't even understand how you're like, you know, like biologically, I feel like your body shouldn't be able to eat in that moment because you should be like, my digestive system is shut down for a moment. I have things going on around me.
I feel like that nurse set you up.
She
That nurse definitely set you up.
She definitely did.
Because, and I, you know, of people who are giving birth, like I feel like the nurses, they're well-meaning. Go get the ice chips. She needs plenty of ice chips. She's like, I can't take any more ice chips. Or it's like, you need a sandwich. You look nervous. You need a sandwich. And they might be distracting them. So it may not be your partner's fault if they wind up getting 50,000 ice chips or a footlong hero.
So my first.
I think it's a way to distract.
my first.
I was like, I don't care what you do with him right now. Go get him a sandwich. Do something. He's stressing me out.
We joke all the time. I never look at a ham and cheese sandwich the same way.
God.
That's for sure.
Oh my God. That's my favorite sandwich. Oh my gosh. Okay.
So that was my
you're
first,
almost like you're like calling in your order. You're like, so hi, I'm sorry, Delia. What would you recommend? Like, what would be a good pairing with a pregnant and a
no? A ham and cheese now. A Taylor. Can I get a Taylor, please?
Exactly.
A Taylor. Oh, that's funny because isn't in New Jersey? Isn't that like Taylor ham? Isn't that the?
Oh my God, is it?
I think so. Oh God, poor Taylor. Okay.
So my second birth. My second birth was a different story, and you know,
I had a bucket of chicken. Does it make sense?
I got penne alla vodka last time. No, but with my with Taylor's second birth, I felt, and I remember this vividly. I felt very helpless, and the reason why was because Taylor had gone from like 0 to 60 within seconds, you know, and we got to the hospital and we were trying to get the epidural in her, but there was somebody in front of us who was waiting, and then it was like and there was one anesthesiologist at the.
It's like a deli counter. Yeah. What is happening?
Yeah, there was one anesthesiologist in the whole hospital at the time. And they said that she is too far along to now get the epidural. So Taylor had to go through this birth without any medication. And I know some people do it, or you know, and that's fine to whatever your birth plan is. But we wanted the epidural. And Taylor also, you know, for those who don't know, she has some like back issues and things like that. So we needed it for her. And I remember they told her to push, and I'm looking down at her and she's looking up at me, and she looks at me and she says, "Help me." And I felt so devastated because there's nothing that I could do. Like, this baby's coming, she's going to have to push. And I felt so helpless. Like I I'm stuttering right now because I remember vividly, like I didn't know if I could get an anesthesiologist. I didn't know if I could get a doctor, but the doctor's already there. And like, there's everybody that could possibly help her is in that room, and anything that I could do for her, I've never felt so helpless in my life. I mean, with my second birth with Elliot, and or for her second birth, and I just remember that, and it was very hard because like after luckily everything came out. I mean, everything came out. She came out all right. Everything was fine, and but you know, I just don't ever want to be put in that position again where I can't help my wife. You know.
No.
So
that's a weird feeling to be so close to someone physically and not be able to do anything.
Correct, and that's exactly it. And it felt really, really weird and really bad, and I hate that feeling and don't want it ever again. And
the expectation is like you're like whether you put it on yourself or like it feels like the world puts it on couples. You feel whatever side of the couple you're in, you feel like you're supposed to be there for the person, and you're supposed to be there to physically, mentally help them through whatever the thing is, whether it's like helping them walk up a curb or like whatever it is. So when you get to something this extreme, and it's something that is such a triumphantly, importantly large, ridiculous moment, and you can't help but feel like you did something wrong, and you feel helpless. It happened with that situation is like, man, you remind me, and it's different. Obviously, everybody has their own circumstances, but with Noah, my wife was relying on the signs that she thought were for the first baby. But when you've already had children, you do not do that. When your water breaks, you get your butt to the hospital.
Things are different.
If there's one thing you pay attention to in this episode, water breaks, get to the hospital. Get to the hospital. Call the doctor on the way. Get to the hospital and don't set your alarm off in the car in the middle of the night like I did. But get to the hospital.
Right. Get to the hospital. So I think with Jean. So okay, quick story. So we got pregnant with Sophia. It was unremarkable, the pregnancy. Thank goodness. Everything after being like scared for the first like 3 months or so, and now it's time. I went to you start like those regular checkups. Like every 2 weeks or twice a week or something like that. So it was the first of like the twice a week. And I go there, my blood pressure's high. It keeps rising, it keeps going up higher. I thought I was stressed. They kept saying like, relax, lay down, relax, it's okay. And it kept getting higher. Then like, okay, you're gonna go to the hospital tonight and we'll see what happens. I'm like, cool. All right. So I went home to my mother-in-law. I was like, I'll see you at the hospital, possibly, maybe. She's like, do you want me to drive you? I'm like, no, I'm cool. I'm good. I'm like, I'm probably going to come home tonight. I'll see you later. So not knowing I was going to have an emergency C-section because apparently I was developing preeclampsia and stuff like that. So Jean gets there and apparently it went very high, my blood pressure. I didn't realize after talking to some friends who are nurses, I should say, I was in a bad situation apparently because they stopped telling me my blood pressure. They started giving me seizure medication, and I didn't know anything. So I was just like,
all
sure.
things are happening at the same time. It's all
they're like, you feel dizzy, you feel anything? I'm like, no, I'm cool. I went to the bathroom. They yelled at me. They're like, you're not supposed to go without telling a nurse. I was like, oh, my bad. I'm sorry, guys. They're like, do you see spots? I'm like, no, I'm cool. I'm good, guys. I'm like, I'm totally like, I'm fine. I'm gonna have a baby tonight.
That's great.
Cool. I'm great. Then they start telling me about the seizure medication. I was like, I guess it's protocol. I don't know why they're giving it to me. I didn't really know what was going on, as naive as it was. Like, I wasn't prepared for, because I was going to do no medication, natural, I was going to be like all Mother Nature. Yeah. So I didn't pay attention to the C-section portion of like Lamaze class or whatever. So there I am. They talked to Jean apparently. And he's crying like a baby in the corner. And I'm like, what the heck is he crying about for? And basically they had told him that, I was in an emergency situation and there might be some tough choices to make. Yeah. And we never in our birth plan talk about those tough choices. Yeah.
Holy moly.
He never told me what was going on. I guess they didn't want to tell me what was going on because at that point I think I was in a really bad situation without knowing I was in a bad situation.
Probably raised your blood pressure too. Even more.
Exactly. So they didn't want to get me upset. Yeah. So
they need like her naive strength right now. That's crazy.
I know. I'm like la da da da. I'm like, I'm having a baby. Like I didn't care.
Meanwhile, Gene's eyes are probably popping out of his head like, oh my god.
And I'm like, why is he crying? Why is he not paying attention to me? So he's calling his
You make
mom.
it all about you, Gene. You make it all about you.
I know. He's so selfish, that guy over there.
Holy moly.
He's calling my mom. He's calling my dad. He's calling everyone to come, to come to the hospital, whatever. And he's crying. I'm like, oh God, this guy's so emotional. Like, it's a baby. Like, why are you crying? Like, I'm about to have surgery soon. Yo, it's scary when you get to the operating table and you're like, ladies, do not turn around. When they say say they're setting you up for epidurals or whatever, don't turn around. Because when you turn around, it's scary. Because I turned around and almost fainted. Then I was like, I need my mom here. So anyway, we had the C-section. And I remember like the sonogram technician at one point during the pregnancy said, "Oh, he looks good." And Jean and I decided that the baby was going to be a surprise. So we're like,
"Oh no."
So I was like, "Jean," she said he. And he was like, "Oh, okay." Unbeknownst to me, he bought like all this boy stuff. He bought like baseball bats. He bought like all these like, boy things. He put it in his truck, his car.
After that time that after that meeting, after that time?
No, like prior to me being like in an emergency situation or whatever, like we thought.
Oh, that's when you heard that. Okay, I'm sorry.
So then I'm down in the emergency room. I'm having this baby. You know, the C-section is a really weird feeling. It's really scary. I have to say, like you feel things. It's they kind of prep you. They kind of let you know what you're gonna feel and stuff like that. But it's really. It was frightening, to be quite honest with you. I was really scared. So when it all happened, now the baby's out, and they're like, "Oh, Dad, tell Mom what she has." And Jean was like, "Oh, it's a girl." And you can literally see like "girl" and a question mark hanging in the air. And I was like, "A girl?" I was like, "They said it was a boy."
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, I had to return stuff. But, you know, I didn't get to see Sophia right away after birth because I was very sick, apparently. So they took care of Sophia. They took care of me. I was very, very sick. I was ill afterwards. The anesthesia didn't agree with me. I guess, like, the extra water, the blood pressure, all that stuff, everything
the trauma, everything. Yeah.
I was ill. I didn't see Sophia until if I gave birth at Sophia at 8 p.m. I didn't see her until 10 a.m.
Holy moly.
Begging them to see her because I just wanted to see my child. And
of course.
And quite honestly, I remember seeing her. I remember kissing her. And it was black. After that, it was darkness.
Oh, wow.
I vaguely remember anything. I was very sick to my stomach. I was, vomiting, things like that. And it wasn't until 10 a.m. I think I came to, and I was like, where's my child? You know, because I wanted to like see her.
Yeah,
I wanted
of
to
course.
count her fingers and things like. But I was very sick. Apparently, I didn't realize like when you're the hospital bed that's closest to the nurse's station, that means that you're in the most serious situation.
Oh wow.
So because they want to keep an eye on you. So I was at the nurse's station, basically. So I didn't realize that was happening. So, but Gene at the same time, if you know Gene's a jokester. He's a bit of a ham. So
you probably knew all the nurses' names like in the first hour of like.
Yes. He has pictures of the nurses. The nurse was supposed to actually leave in the midst of my C-section for another nurse to come in. But the way Gene was acting, and he was like, "Oh my God, I'm so nervous. I don't know what to do." She was like, "I'm going to stay with you." And this nurse, she is a blessing. She stayed with Gene the whole time, over time. She probably didn't get paid. She just stayed there willingly with Gene the whole time to keep him comfortable because, really and truly, like, yes, we're going through things and like there was a team taking care of me, but there was no one taking care of Gene. And Gene was like so alone in this moment, I think. And he was scared. He was told he has to make tough decisions, unfortunately, if things went in a wrong direction, he might have to choose between his wife or his child. And he didn't know what to do. And this nurse, she stayed with him the whole time. And she really took care of him, So I have to say, our nurses, our frontline workers, they are our most valuable possessions we could ever own in this earth. Like, they're there to give so much. Shout out to you, nurses.
Yeah.
When you're there, and I know like obviously this is probably an intense episode, especially if you haven't had a child. Man, I'm sorry. Yeah. But the thing that you could do if you feel like in the moment is a couple things that just kind of randomly came in my mind. One is if you have your phone handy, open the Notes app and just have out the spouse who is not giving birth in the moment. It would be really wise to have like almost like an ongoing list of everything that's going on. Just like any important notes, anything, because like in the moment, like there's a lot going on, and maybe like you want to go back to that at some point. Also in that Notes app, besides like all the things that are happening, the times, the medicines, and everything else, write down the nurses' names of the ones that really helped you out, because afterwards it would be very nice to send a note or write to, just to say thank you.
Yes, we did that. Yep, we sure did. We sent we made sure we got the nurse's name, and we sent a thank you note, because she really was a guardian angel at that time for Gene. He needed her. It was scary. She was allowed in the operating room. She was holding his hand. She had the salts ready for him just in case. And Gene needed
there's
it.
always a guy that passes out. Yeah, rightfully so. Holy moly.
Yeah.
There's go ahead.
And just to speak to that, that brought me to the last thing that I was going to say, which was when Taylor had her last pregnancy, there was some type of bubble or some type of air pocket in like her spine from like the medication and stuff like that, and it was giving her massive headaches like after having birth.
Oh wow.
And we couldn't tell where it was or what was happening to her. And it was funny because all these doctors came in trying to figure out like what was going on with her. And who figured it out was the nursing nurse who came in and was like, listen, I've seen this in a lot of patients. It was, sometimes by putting the epidural in, they create like air bubbles or air pockets from where they put it into the spine. And then we had to make a decision for Taylor. We had to figure out if this was the problem. They had to fill it with fluid, and it may not cure the problem, and they didn't know where the bubble was, so it was like kind of shooting in the dark. So we had to make the decision like, hey, if we're gonna do this, they're gonna shoot in the dark, and it may or may not give you relief. And it was a tough decision for us because we're sitting there, our Hayden is taken, but the nurse actually took her because Taylor couldn't withstand the crying and just dealing with the baby at the time,
the headaches and everything else going on.
And with the massive migraines that were caused by the medications that were put in her, So, and then we made the decision to like go for the fluid, with the shot in the dark. And luckily, thankfully, they hit the right spot and they filled the air pocket, which alleviated her headaches and these migraines that she was having. And, to speak to what you were saying, Sarah, you don't understand, like, not that you don't understand. It's a lot of people may get caught up with the current situation that's happening, like the birth, what the female's going through of giving birth and the process. And, sometimes you forget about like Gene, like when he was crying and the nurse was able to go over there. Like we struggle, I think, as your support, we struggle watching you struggle, so, and we just want, we want the best for you. We want everything to come out okay for you. And then there's that feeling of helplessness. Like there's really not much we could do other than like, hey, you got this, come on, and there's like no magical, it's not like we're a doctor or we're, we can figure out some other way that can alleviate things. We just gotta help you kind of make rational decisions, be your support, and be there for you while you go through this like kind of traumatic experience. And that in itself could be traumatic for the support, right? So because you don't know if you're advising her correctly, you don't know if you're it's all new to you. And if you say something that she goes for, you don't want her to blame you that you messed up. I don't know. It's just it's very tough. And I love the fact that the nurse was there for Gene, and the nurses in hospitals are there for not only, the person giving birth, but the support, they're the support to the support. So, it's just,
exactly.
I think,
just remember that,
I think there's something, that we've talked about this, I think it must have been our first episode, but there was something that I think we talked about, and like, it's a big list in the first episode. One of the things that I think, which is such a it's such a weird thing in at least our culture in the United States. I feel like it's just people don't remember that when a woman gives birth, even if it's a C-section, natural birth, meds, it's surgery. It is literally surgery.
Yes.
So if you got a surgery that did not have to do with the baby and someone has surgery, people jump in. They're like, oh, could I do for you? Could I do? For some bizarre reason, when a woman gives birth, that somehow is forgotten about, and they don't realize that the woman is like literally getting well from surgery and having to take care of this and have visitors and have her hormones raging, and all of these things are happening at the same time. So if you, within your ability, for some whatever reason, for whatever culture or why this is, as a partner, you can be the crazy protective one. And you can protect their personal space. You can protect their well-being. And even if that's to send people away or to field crazy conversations or to like lose it in the most controlled way possible out of the people, it's good to be that person for your person that gave birth, because they may not know how to handle a circumstance when they're laying there connected to all these like different IV lines and everything else. Yeah. And if you can tell people to just, maybe now's not a good time. Maybe we can, we're going to wrap this up. She's getting a little tired. I'm going to have her eat. Time to go, whatever. And that is okay. And people will forgive you later. And sometimes, as sad as it sounds, oh, it's just so cute. You're so protective. But it's like not cool, because sometimes women aren't given the luxury of doing that. And even though that is unfair, it is appreciated to be the one to kind of jump in and protect, because in that time, it doesn't make the women any weaker. It means that you are actually doing your job as a unit, as a relationship, to protect the other person from emotions, the physical. Just be there for them.
I think that's what you said is the most important thing, is communication. Is whether it's your birth plan, if you're going to nurse, if you're going to bottle feed, or we're going to try it and see how it goes kind of thing. Whether it's cloth diapers, real diapers. I think that needs to be like, you need to have conversations with your spouse, like, and say, hey, like, culturally, I know your family wants to be here all the time. I might be overwhelmed, and understanding your spouse and saying, like, you being the buffer. Especially, as women, we're recovering, or the person who's giving birth, we're recovering from having a child. It is, an exercise of the body that, whether it's C-section, natural, or you said, or with some help with epidurals, you're still experiencing something. There's a lot of things kind of going on mentally, emotionally. And I think as the person who's the support person, the spouse, it's good to be buffering, the buffer who's setting the guidelines, setting the boundaries for the person, because it's like one less thing off your plate as you're trying to recover physically and take care of the small child that you just given life to. And also too, as a family member, I've come from a Latina and Caribbean background with my husband's family. It is so much appreciated. If you just came in and not made me feel guilty, or the person who just gave birth feel guilty that they're not, like having a million company, passing around the baby. Just respect our boundaries. It's so much more appreciated to come in, clean the dishes, sweep the floor, mop it, maybe do a load of laundry. Hey, go take a shower real quickly. I'll watch the baby.
Go take a nap.
Want me to watch. Take a nap. But even then, like, I know I felt like I wanted to be with the baby every 5 seconds. So, but I would much appreciate you straighten up things, walk the dog for me, stuff like that. Just do, like in the way that, the person wants to do. And if you don't know how to do it, then don't touch it. You know what I mean? Like, if the person does dishes a certain way, just to leave it alone. But like, just find small ways to help. Mac and cheese is great. I think just being, and being helpful is always the best thing, and trying to respect that person's boundary. And I can see also too, having had friends who had babies and being the godmother and things like that. It's also too, like, you want to help them, and also like not trying to encroach on their boundaries as well, because everyone's boundaries are different. What worked for you may not work for the other family. So just respecting that kind of stuff. But it's definitely good to have a buffer somewhere.
You can't say it better than that. That's amazing. I will tell you that something I wanted to just squeeze into the conversation too is because we do have 3 kids, and we did have 2, and we had that huge scare. And my wife kind of, I don't know, she grew up with her and her sister. I grew up with me and my sister, like two. You know, it was like, you know, whatever, like, you know, the picket fence, 2 kids and a dog. I don't know, whatever. But like, we had birds. But the idea was like, we never really anticipated having a 3rd kid. And it was like, I don't know why, and I don't know when it happened, but somewhere along the way, like my wife felt that we were incomplete. And it felt like for our family, for our situation, everybody's different. I was not sure at the time, but then with some convincing and some conversations, it made sense. And like, for whatever reason, I can't explain it, but it just, for some reason, 3 became something that we were like, sort of like, we felt that we were going to do. And I wasn't sure because I had this pressure on me internally, where in my mind, when I was playing life as a kid, I guess, I don't know, with my little pink car, I feel like I was growing up with this mentality, like 2 kids is what we wanted to have. And I don't think that you have to fit the requirement of what everyone, or whatever you expected, or whatever the norm is, or whatever you feel is right for you. For us, that was 3. For some people, that's 1. For some people, that's 2. For some people, they want more, but they can only have 1. And they go through circumstances where medically, whatever the reason is, financially, it doesn't matter. That's where they feel that they wanted to be, or that's where they felt they had to be, or they didn't have a choice in the matter. But for us, it was 3, and we decided to go in front of the round. And I think we went in very scared. We went in thinking, like, of course, at the time, the words changed. My wife was, quote unquote, a geriatric pregnancy. But it was like, holy schmolies, here we go. So we did. And obviously, you know, we're happy we have our little dude. And it's wild because Jacob's 11 and Noah's 4. But, that's a range, you know, and we have the 3. And it's kind of a cool dynamic. But I will say, and I don't know what this means or what you could take away from it, going from 1 to 2 was hard. It wasn't impossible. Going from having 1 meant like when the baby was napping, we were like, oh, cool. We could sort of, I mean, after once we got out of the weeds, but then it was like, oh, the baby's napping. Cool. And then when we had the second one, then it was like, oh, okay, well, they're not both napping now. So this is different. And then it was a lot more like dividing and conquering a little bit. And when we got to this conversation about having more than 2, it was like, we're going to be outnumbered. I can't multitask. How are we going to fit 3 in the car? What are we going to do here? And we kind of worked it out. But I will say that going from 1 to 2 in many ways was harder than going from 2 to 3. And I will also say, and like, I don't know what this means, but I will almost say, like, having the 3rd, we kind of brought it on ourselves in a way. Like, it was a different mentality. Like, we knew we had 2. We were very happy. We didn't care if it was a boy or a girl, whatever. We were like, we're going to have the 3rd one. If we're going to do this, like, we're going to get no sleep. We're going to be up. They're going to be crying. We're going to deal with it. But you know what? We kind of brought this on ourselves. This was definitely a decision. It was, in a weird way, we were kind of like sort of primed for it. And even though we were tired as can be and like things were going on, it was, in some ways, it was kind of easier because I think like we had gone through like the tricky baby. We've gone through this stuff. And in a weird way, I don't know how this was possible, but maybe it was just like a mind frame thing. Like the 3rd one in some ways wasn't as tricky as we had anticipated. We are not the lady in the shoe. We do not have 17 kids. I don't know what that was like, but I will tell you that that 3 wasn't as hectic or as crazy as we had expected. I mean, there were times when it's kind of nutty, but it's cool.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. And like, even with us trying to figure out if we wanted a 3, like we had our boy, we had our girl, we had 2, we were fine. You know, we had like what we wanted. And I think we just kind of like, when we were discussing a 3rd baby, you know, we were like, we don't. This kind of feeling of like being greedy came over us. Like, we have 2 healthy babies. Like, why do we want to?
Oh, like we roll the dice and we were, we went through that too. We were definitely feeling it.
And we were like, you know what? Let's leave it to fate. And, you know, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We have a beautiful family. And, you know, and it happened during COVID, actually. So now which was an experience in itself, because trying to get into the hospital when you have during COVID was crazy. But it was a great time. And we can't picture our life without the three of them now. So you just you love your family.
So I mean, we are definitely like so many topics. I think like as we're going through this, like that, I think about all the stuff you went through during the time. It's a whole topic in itself with your wife and what she was going on with all that. And there's so much more, but, there were a couple little things. Normally in our show, we would go to like, we would go to the part of the show where we talk about like, you know, other parts of things we're doing. This week we're gonna do it a little bit differently. Real fast. We're not going to be able to go into so much detail here. Some of the things we wanted to talk about, a couple things. We have some articles that we're going to reference. We're going to tell you about. We have a couple other things we want to mention, but one of the things that I feel we feel very strongly about is people in public, even if you don't know them. Sometimes they say things that are really hurtful. They're pushy. They're uninvited conversations. And we did look up, and it's interesting. One of the things was how to deal with people asking you, "Are you having more kids?" Something along those lines. Oh, you have the boy, you can try for the girl. You have the two, you can go for the third. You have the first, you can go for the second. Like you literally just had the kid. Like, could you please, could you give us some personal space? And how do you deal with that? Like, how do you answer that? And I believe it or not, I feel like I found some of the best stuff on Reddit, because you know what? The internet's an interesting place. We do have articles, but one of the things that was agreed upon in a lot of these threads was, when are you having more kids? And the simple response is, I'm not comfortable in discussing that. You know what? That was a beautiful line. And a lot of people agreed in the comments that is a great line. You don't need to, you could say it whatever tone you want. I think I'm like, but finding a way to not get into it, in a sense, is probably the best way to get into it. Is just not, because sometimes your story is so much deeper. Maybe you had some medical complications. Maybe you have things going on. Maybe there's far harder things like a miscarriage or things that you really don't want to get into. Or the person that asked the question, maybe you're like, I don't want to share this with you. So I'm not comfortable in discussing that is pretty good. There is various versions of this. None of your concern. This is a private matter. None of your business. Not having this conversation with you. Those are a little bit more like intense, and then obviously there's other things too, of like the sarcastic versions of it, of like, the random person of like, would you like to tell me about your bedroom? Like, like you're obviously not going to say that to a person, but, you could also say, there are, yeah, exactly. There are responses that were also posted. Like, that question's very offensive. It could be incredibly hurtful. I have a lot of friends struggling with infertility, and you really should never ask a question like that. If someone wants to share their family planning information with you, they will do so themselves. In other words, you don't have to share when you're not comfortable, and you shouldn't feel defensive in having to get into it. We are, there's a couple articles this week. They're all going to be in the show notes. One of them is, please stop asking me when I'm having another baby. It goes into a full detailed explanation of someone having some very difficult times with their first baby medically, and what that was like for them from the bump. We have that one. Please stop asking me if I'm going to have more babies. That article's from theverymom.com. We're going to post that one. There's also some resources that we feel very strongly about. This is not a podcast about religion. This is not a podcast about politics. This is us trying to help you guys as parents. There's an article about miscarriages, loss, and grief. The March of Dimes website has some wonderful resources. What is Rainbow Baby? This is another website that kind of explains that, and I think it gives hope to people that if they are going through a rough time, it's if you're unsure if you want to keep trying, or you're going through a rough patch, or maybe you're starting to dust it off a little bit and thinking about if you want to proceed and go forward with that. There's a great website about that. There's also another website that I think it was great, is 5 ways to support a family expecting a rainbow baby. Maybe when things are starting to look in a positive direction, there's a lot of weight, there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of feelings that go along with that. And maybe that's another website that you might want to take a little peek into. So we do have those. This week, look, the question this week is, what do you want to share with us? This has been a pretty heavy-handed episode. It's a little bit longer than our typical episodes, but it was an important episode for us to share with you. What do you want to tell us? If there's anything on your mind, if there's anything that you experienced, we want to hear about it. We've kind of shared our piece. We have a lot of other things, and I'm sure we're going to be a little rattled after we finish this one up, but we feel it was an important one. And I know that, when you're feeling where you are, we've given you some resources, but we know that, I think ultimately, please know that you are never alone. There are always people that come out of the woodworks when you share just a little bit of what you're going through, because this is not something that should ever be something you should try to feel all by yourself, whether you are the person that is pregnant or you're the person that's a spouse or you're the partner. Seek out people to help you, because it's not something you have to do yourself. So we have a few different ways you can contact us in the show. One, you can leave us a message on our Hey Other Parents voicemail line. We jokingly tell you it's 559-LAY-KIDS, or you can just dial the phone like a normal person, 559-537-5437. That's in the show notes. You could email the show at heyotherparents@gmail.com, or you could join us on Instagram or Blue Sky with the username Hey The Parents. I just started this week to post the question that we talk about in the show, so that's always there when AI doesn't do its nasty job of showing you ridiculous things. So like I said before, in place of our Time to Unplug that we normally do, where we talk about things that are going outside the children, this just seemed like a good episode to talk about these resources. So I think, thank you guys both. I'm really glad we had a chance to share this. I feel like, with the two of you, man, I feel even closer with you guys after going through this. This was an emotional ride, but we'd like to take a special moment to thank our listeners, our supporters, for donating to the show. If you want to help support the show so we can keep making shows like this one, we have a link to donate to the show in the show notes. If you don't have the means to do so, we totally get it. But, this show is important to us and what we're doing, and we wouldn't mind you telling friends and family about what we're doing in the podcast so we can reach more people and share these different topics with them. And if you have time, if you want to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, we'd always appreciate that. But we can't wait to explore this parenting thing again with you next week on Hey The Parents, because it is the three of us and all of you. Don't forget to hug your kids and charge your Chromebooks. That's going to do it for me, for Mike, and for Sarah. Bye-bye.
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 Hey The Parents is produced by Mike Levine, Sarah Desvines, and me, Michael Haidt. I edit, mix our show. Our intro voice recording was done by the one and only Coltrane. If you like our show, we will help you to consider going to our show notes and help support the podcast. Find us online at Instagram, Blue Sky, at Hey The Parents, or send us an email